Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? I never sit close enough to this. It's a much more intimate thing than I'm used to. So welcome everyone. We're really glad to have you here this afternoon to talk about our integrated planning and advising services work. We have a great panel today. We have Karen Stout to my right, who is the president of Montgomery County Community College. Celeste Schwartz, who is the CIO, and what else is in your title? College Services. Catherine Swanson, also with Montgomery County Community College, head of advising. And then Virginia Frere, who is with Austin Community College. And both institutions have been active participants and also star participants in our IPAS work, so I'm really glad to have them here. And I thought I would start just by giving you a little bit of background on the Gates Foundation and our work. Let's see. Oh, I think I reversed that. Okay, sorry. I put my slideshow together this morning. So the Gates Foundation is very much focused on increasing college completion across America. And we have actually two strategies in the education space. One is College Ready, which is very much focused on K-12 reform. And then the post-secondary strategy, where I work, which is very much focused on college completion. I lead our work in personalized learning, which is really about trying to tailor the educational and support experience of all students in higher ed. We have two major strands of work. One is on digital courseware and instruction, and that's really where we have spent the bulk of our money. And then also on student advising and support services. I wanted to give you a little bit of background as to why we picked student advising as a core component of our work. And sorry, I didn't realize this was animated. So part of we come from a technology background, Bill Gates and Microsoft. And so a lot of our work is really informed by the potential and value add of technology in enhancing human capacity in the real world. And so when we began to look into higher education and we looked at the technology infrastructure that was available for most institutions, we found that it was very heavy on the enrollment management side and very heavy on the alumni and relationship management side, and really pretty empty on the time when students are in your institution and most need your help and support. And so part of the motivation of our IPAS work is really on figuring out how we can help you get access to the right technology tools that can make your job easier. The second piece, and this is one of my favorite sort of noisy, make your head explode slides, is the student experience. And this is a slide that I borrowed from Sarah Goldick-Robb. And the main thing to focus on is the far right, the box that says 828. She did a study in Wisconsin of students to understand how much they were regularly on track to complete their degree in 4, 5, or 6 years. The main box for you guys is this on the far right, the second one from the bottom. It said that of the students entering higher ed, those who are on a 6-year degree track are only on that track 2% of the time. Most students bounce, that's what those arrows represent, bounce back and forth trying to figure out what course do I take, how soon am I going to complete my degree, what's going on. And so it was these two issues that really motivated us to step into the student support space with our planning and advising services. We focused on 3 main areas: degree planning, coaching and advising, and early alert. And our vision for this is that students would be able to come in within the degree planning world, do some career exploration, figure out what they want to be, match that to what majors would lead them to that career opportunity, all the way back to signing up for courses that semester. Then as they are getting that degree plan in place, they're connecting with their advisor, they're reviewing the degree plan, they're understanding if, did I read the course catalog right, and am I on track? And then the early alert system would really help the institution monitor students throughout the course and across multiple courses to make sure that they're on track. And when they're not on track, to sort of raise alarm bells so that the right actor within the institution could reach out with the right kind of support to keep the student on track. And our hope is that we would minimize the noise that you saw on the previous slide. So that's sort of what our IPAS is. And now I want to turn it over so that you can hear from some of my partners in what we've done. And Karen is going to go first.
I can stand up. Is it okay if I stand? I'm going to sit down because I've been standing up a lot in these last couple of days, if that's okay with everybody. Thank you for being here. It's great to see this much interest in the project, or it's really it's a lot bigger than a project in a lot of ways. At Montgomery County Community College, we've been an Achieving the Dream institution since 2006. So as a result of that, in our student success journey, we've done a lot around college readiness. We've been through some and continue to do course redesign. We've been working on some of our student services delivery. We're into some program pathway planning. But the big move for us really was to redesign and think in a design thinking way about the student pathway from entry into the second semester. And Celeste and Catherine will talk a little bit about that when we get specific to Montgomery's work. But there is a tool, and this tool that I want to talk for a second about because I think it's applicable not just to Montgomery, but to anybody that wants to take on this big advising redesign, student entry through advising redesign. And it's a readiness matrix from the Community College Research Center. And it forces you to think a little bit about the technology and the people and the culture, which is very important. When I said that this is a design project, it really is as much a design project as it is a technology project. When we presented this at EDUCAUSE recently, and there was a big quote on the wall at EDUCAUSE, and the question said, "What is design?" And it's where you stand with a foot in two worlds, the world of technology and the world of people and human purposes, and you try to bring the two together. And that's really what this work is. It's culture building in a lot of ways on our campuses. So I wish we had this framework at the very beginning of our work in IPAS at Montgomery, but we stumbled upon it because it came out, I think, last September, right in the midst of the IPAS work because CCRC was doing some readiness work with some of the IPAS colleges. And the framework focuses on adoption, not just implementation, which means implementation is about deploying technology and then making it available to end users, and that's what you focus on. But adoption is a process by which the end users incorporate a new technology into daily work processes, and that means there's culture shifting, there's job responsibility shifting, there's a lot of shifting within the organization. It's not just a technology project. So the self-assessment starts with a look at college-wide technology capacity. What is the IT infrastructure? And taking a look at that, is it mature, stable, experienced? And for us, we ranked high in that quadrant. Then you look at the project level relationship to technology, and the question is, can we get this project up and running? And the way the Gates Foundation structured IPAS was we really did have to be up and running fast. And we were medium for that. And we were medium not because of the technology, but more because of the ongoing support and the end user incentives to use the tool. So then you move to the culture issues at the institutional level. What's your organizational readiness? How much buy-in do you have on your campus around this student success work? And how open is your college community to change? And we were at a high, I think high in that quadrant because of the work we had been engaged in with Achieving the Dream. And then the project level motivation related to culture, that was different for us. I put us in low to medium when we first started this work, and primarily because the advisors, and I'll pinpoint the advisors for a moment, I don't think they understood the vision of the effort. Or they had in their mind what I'll call the hidden commitment, which is a barrier to change. And the hidden commitment was, this is going to change my world, and so I'm going to figure out a way to resist it because I can't really figure out what it means for me. So we had a lot of work to do from a culture perspective to shape what that was going to mean for the advisors. But I would highly recommend anyone that wants to begin this work To use this tool, CCRC has a wonderful paper, and then they have a deeper diagnostic tool that'll take you through each of the quadrants so that you can figure out where you are on a readiness scale. And I would say you really have to do that before you try to deploy any of the technology tools. This is really much more than a technology initiative.
No, that's great. Thank you. So now we're going to move to Virginia. Do you want the clicker?
Yeah.
Easier, probably.
So Karen said it right. Is this on?
You're going to move close.
So I want to just underscore a message that Karen just delivered, and to say that the work that we are doing with IPAS and with our partners with the Gates Foundation and Civitas Learning really goes beyond adopting a technology application. It really does go to the heart of really interrupting the way that we have been doing at our institution academic advising. And so for us, this work really began with a very simple premise. And the premise is that we want to make sure that we help students have agency about their learning journey. And if your institution is anything like ours, we often sit around the table and we talk a lot about the challenges that students bring, that they're part-time, that they're undeclared, that they're working full-time, and we don't talk often about what we can do as an institution. And so this project has really allowed us to really do some self-inventory and talk about what can we do and what can we change within academic advising to make sure that we are meeting students where they're at. Just by way of background, this is one of 11 campuses. For those of you who may not know, Austin Community College is located in beautiful Austin, Texas. And we have 11 campuses, soon to be 12. We enroll about 40,000 students in credit-bearing courses and about 15,000 students in continuing education. We serve about an 8-county region. And have partnerships with about 30 independent school districts. So our scope is pretty broad. And so we wanted to make sure that we were very intentional about how we were serving students in academic advising. Just like Montgomery College, we have multiple projects going on. We're doing some exceptional work in accelerating developmental education in mathematics. We're also working and doing some work in competency-based education. But one of our main strategies is also to significantly improve what we are doing with academic advising. So we engaged in this process of reimagining student advising. And you should know that for about 3 decades, we essentially used a paper-based advising form. A student would come in, we'd fill out this form, prescribe the courses, just for that one semester that they were coming to see us, and then off they went. And that was the way that we did business. And in 2010, I thought we were making some major leaps. We actually developed a homegrown education plan. But at the end of the day, it was really just the paper advising form converted into a PDF form. And that wasn't going to get us to where we needed to be. And so we partnered with Civitas Learning in 2012 and really began the hard work of mapping out not just the curriculum that students and advisors needed to know, but also mapping out the ideal process that we wanted students to engage in when it came to academic advising. And then, of course, in 2013, we were very well positioned to apply for the IPAS grant, and we're very grateful to the Gates Foundation for their support in this work. So I want to say this work is about using technology to support new advising approaches. So what we had been doing in yesteryear was no longer applicable for the students that we needed to serve in today's world, and we began the redesign of advising by really engaging in an ethnographic study with Civitas Learning. They came to campus. They really sat and observed hundreds of advising sessions to really try to understand how it was that advisors and students were engaging in this thing that we were calling advising. And what we found was that basically the conversations really centered about requirements, procedures, sifting through catalogs, and trying to understand what the prerequisites were. And there was very little conversation to be had about the dream that got them to us. And so for us, it was very important to begin the conversation with our students with that. And so for us, we adopted Degree Map, which is an application. It's an online application tool that was developed by Civitas Learning. And I think it's important for me to share that part of the reason for doing this is that our graduation rate and our time to degree, and on average, the number of hours that students accrue for their associate's degree is much, much higher than the state average. At Austin Community College, a student, on average, will take 101 hours to complete an associate's degree. An associate's degree that's 60 to well, now it's 60 because we've been mandated by the state to cap it at 60. But that is just way too much time. And so there has been ample opportunity to innovate and to really restructure the way we do our academic advising. And for us, our solution has been, at this point, to adopt Degree Map. The initial goals of this application have been pretty straightforward. I mean, we wanted to make sure that we had a technology application that allowed us to facilitate the conversation about degree requirements, to sort of help us clear the table so that we could have that conversation that brought students with us, to us. And this application also allows us to do quick comparisons. If students are thinking about changing their majors, we can easily do that. We no longer have to go to the catalog or even go to we have always had a degree audit system. This is not to say that we'd never had a degree audit system. We have always had that, and we still have the audit system that the Admissions and Records Office use to make sure that they're able to certify graduation, but that audit system is very clunky. It doesn't allow for students to sort of explore the what ifs. So what if they want to change their major? Where are they in their progress? One of the things that we have not been able to do well is provide students ongoing feedback about their progress. That is fundamental to the academic experience in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So students were required to come in for a mandated advising session at the beginning, and then we would do a graduation audit for them at the time that they were ready to graduate. And so all that in-between time, we wouldn't really give any feedback to students about how they were doing and about their progress. And so this application allows us to be able to do that, to give that information to students. Now, this has been a very heavy heavy lift. This is not an initiative, a project, or an undertaking that is relegated to one office. It really does require leadership at the highest level, and it really does require a framework, as Karen mentioned, to be able to set that in the environment just right so that it's able to take hold. And so you need to be able to have constant interaction with the end users. And you need to be able to have constant interaction with the external partners and with all of the offices that have something to do with helping students get to the end and finish strong. Now, having broad collaboration doesn't mean that sort of everybody's on board, but nobody's driving. To do this work, you really do have to have key champions in different areas. The IPAS grant for us was extremely beneficial because we were able to have a dedicated person who was working, has been working on a daily basis with the end users in student services and in instruction. And this person is constantly troubleshooting the day-to-day issues that may come up with the application and with any other inquiries that may come through from end users and from instructional faculty. We also have a point person in IT. When we started this work, we thought, whoever picks up the phone will help us remedy whatever technology issue we have. We quickly found out that we could not do that. So we had to assign somebody, and the director of IT has been the project manager on this work. We also have a point person in the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Accountability. And then I have been also providing a lot of leadership to make sure that the team continues to make progress. So there's this requires a lot of collaboration and truly rolling up your sleeves to be able to do this successfully. I want to, this is the second to the last slide, so I'm not going to end with this, but I just want to underscore a couple of things here. These are basically some of the early results that we're seeing. From the very beginning, because this was an application that was jointly developed with much input from the end users, we had very high adoption rates early on. At our college, we did not have the experience that advisors and counseling faculty were not willing to engage in this new way of advising. They were on board, and I think I really believe and attribute that to the fact that they were engaged from the very beginning, and what we were able to deliver was an application that worked for them. The other thing that we have done, and I'm very pleased with our progress to date, is we have trained students. We have also begun to train faculty. Right now, we have trained about 300 instructional faculty members. I will tell you that the department chair for developmental math has essentially wholesale adopted this application. This is what they're using to document the advising that they're using with students, which is fabulous because for us, we're able to see whatever faculty advising notes are being entered, and we had never had that in the past. So it's working very nicely. We're working to have tighter collaborations with other disciplines as well, but I think we're well on our way. One of the other wonderful things that we have been able to do as a result of adopting this IPAS technology is that we were able to very quickly run some reports to tell that would inform us who has already completed a degree. And we right now we're about 75 students. We're already in our system. They had not applied for graduation. We had not awarded a degree or credential, and we were able to do it now with this application. So with that, I want to close with basically 2 points here. And one has to do with the data integration. In order to successfully do this project, you really have to have very clean and crisp data to be able to integrate into the IPAS product. And for us, we weren't where we needed to do. We had to correct about 2,500 student records. A 40-year history of coursework that had not been sort of looked at in a comprehensive way. So we had to do a lot of work on that end. And then the other thing is that our data doesn't just sort of nicely reside in one database. I mean, you have the LMS, you have the SIS, and then you have, for us, about 30 different external products from vendors. And so figuring out how we sort of get all that data into a system that makes sense has been a lot of work. Of course, the one thing that you need to also plan as you're thinking about implementing one of these applications is that you can build the greatest application, you can have the greatest integration, but if you're not out there every day training and educating and onboarding people about this new way of doing advising, it's not going to take hold. And so we have spent a considerable amount of time through the IPAS grant doing that very thing. And so I will end with that and turn it over to Greg or Celeste.
Yeah, no, Celeste, thank you, Virginia. And Catherine is going to talk. Okay, great. Do you want to grab the mic?
You want to?
Here we go. So for us, starting this whole journey really started almost a year prior to the IPAS grant opportunity coming along, and I think that was part of what helped us with some of the success with implementation. Not to say we didn't have our hiccups, but we had already decided we needed to redesign our advising processes and our student entry processes into the college. And so there's a map of it there. I'm not going to talk you through the map. I want to talk more about some of our process with working with the staff on this. But we really looked at some of we're not a completion by design school, but we looked at what the schools were doing and some of the literature out there as part of our redesign work. And it was a cross-functional team in student affairs and enrollment management that worked on creating this map. It's been refined a little bit over the past 2 years, but this is pretty close to what they came up with. We knew as we started looking at this that the advising role would change significantly, as Karen had mentioned, but there was a lot of fear around that. A couple champions, but a lot of fear with that. We started making incremental changes. We started with moving to a model of every student having an assigned advisor based on their major. That was a big shift. It doesn't sound like it should be, but it was a big shift for us. And then the advisor role starts changing to assisting students with navigating, doing their educational plans versus course scheduling, where every semester, students would wait in a long line for drop-in advising, and an advisor would sit down there and help them schedule and key in their schedules for them for the next semester, even though students could do it on their own. There was a comfort level in doing that. But as we're moving to this assigned advisor system and more of a case management or a coaching system for students, the volume, it became apparent that we needed the technology tools to support us with doing some of this work. And we'd started identifying tools when IPAS came along. What IPAS did for us is it allowed us to accelerate that work. Things that we would have probably taken 3 to 5 years to implement, we've done in a year and a half as a result of being involved with IPAS. I think that has helped us with the change process. It's like you go from having a couple of cheerleaders and some naysayers, and you hope those cheerleaders out are louder than the naysayers. And that when you stretch the work out, I think the naysayers can pull the cheerleaders down. But with moving this fast, it's almost like ripping the Band-Aid. And they had to move a little bit faster with it. So that was very helpful to us, I think, by being involved with IPAS. Our model is based on strong support on the front end with students, where advisors are really spending a lot of time with students in that entry process and through their first semester to get them set up for success. And then empowering students to track and follow their own success and own their own success journeys from that point forward using the technology tools. But then, for someone who's struggling, there's the alerts that pulls that advisor back in to assist them. So that's really, where we're going with that. We created a student success network, and Celeste will talk about the tools in a few minutes. So that faculty advisors are more connected in how they support students. And then tutoring is part of that, and all of our other support services like veteran support and different grant programs that support special populations at the college. It's been a culture change for our advisors. Having this tied in with our Achieving the Dream and our Student Success Initiative work at the college, I think has helped to accelerate it as well. At the beginning of this year, when we were revising our work plan for Achieving the Dream, we were like, what's going to be our big goal? What's the big goal? And what we settled on is every student will have an academic plan for completion with a financial plan to support them. And so that's where we want to go. Are we there yet? Not yet, but that's where we're moving. For the advisors, what it's done, as I said, it's changed their role to really utilizing their advising skills and move them out of the clerical part, the data entry and helping with that. So to support that, we also have a registration lab in our Student Success Center, and that's staffed with peer mentors with one advisor guiding them at any one time. They rotate through that. And so students are learning to use the technology tools under the guidance of peer mentors as they learn how to navigate through those. And so there's that support to help students move that direction there. So what has been the results of our work? It's a little too soon to have completion data. That's really why we're doing this, is to move the needle on completion. But some of our early results, I think, are promising. We implemented Starfish last March and then launched student planning on September 30th. Yesterday morning, we hit 10,000 students in student planning. I was here, but sent out the note to all the advisors, and we had an impromptu party at each of our student success centers yesterday afternoon to celebrate hitting that mark. But we decided to define other metrics to help us know if we're on track as part of putting our work together so that we're not looking at just completion at the end. We did see some incremental progress with fall to spring persistence as well as fall to fall persistence most recently, but we also defined metrics out of our Noel Levitt student satisfaction inventory to see if we're moving the needle on satisfaction, because advising next to parking was one of the areas that we had the biggest achievement gaps on. I think, and that's in the national data as well. Parking seems to be one of the biggest concerns for students. But when we look at our gap scores with Noel Levitt's, one of our goals was some of our scores that were above 1, that dangerous 1 for that gap score, we wanted to move down below the 1. And so for our academic advising gap score, in fall 2011, we were at 1.11 last fall. And remember, we're just still in the middle of implementation. It dropped to 0.9. And so we're headed the right direction. Where we want to be yet, not quite. The one that's most remarkable, next to parking, our second highest gap score in 2011 was students are notified early in the term if they're doing poorly. We were at 1.31 was our gap score. We are now at 0.77. And that's the results of a number of different things that we've done, but I do think the early alert helps with that. Nationally, for community colleges, that gap score is 1.2. So we looked at national benchmarks when we set our goals for what we wanted, where we wanted to get to with these. We also pulled out metrics from SESI to look at related to this, and from Sense, and those are moving in the right direction, all but one of them, so we'll have to do some tweaks around that as well. So without too much further ado, I'll let Celeste talk more about some of the technologies that we implemented to support this work.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to...
Yeah.
There are no slides behind this slide, by the way, right?
That's good, no.
Yeah.
No more.
There's a thank you one.
So what you saw with, the reason for these two slides, let me try to explain them. I think it's really important to understand that, as Catherine indicated, we had a plan and a process in place. So while I'm going to talk about the tools, it's really about getting I can't even emphasize this enough. The reason why we have been successful is because we got the process right first. And a lot of the cultural changes were underway before we took on the heavy lift with the IPAS work. And for us, it was a heavy lift. We decided to be adventurous with our work. And we, as part of the IPAS project, we were asked to identify a partner. And I can remember my conversation with Greg, what would you think about 3 partners? So we did not implement, and I think there are only a few of us who ventured in this direction. We actually implemented 3 new technologies, or 3 technologies in a different way. So, as I said, get the process right, okay? And then the tools, I'm going to talk about our partners, but keep in mind that the partners that we selected were what were available, best of breed then, and there probably are other partners now that are either catching up. There are other partners, I know that. They call on me all the time. So let me talk a little bit about the tools. So this drawing is trying to demonstrate that we had a map and then we overlaid tools. Some of the tools we had, some of the tools, and I want to talk about this is important as well, know when to throw out a tool. We threw out 2 tools. Know when to say, this tool doesn't do what it needs to do, and there's something better on the market that's really going to get at the student success initiatives, right? So our 3 partners that we partnered with were Ellucian, and we have our ERP system is Colleague, and we put in student planning. Catherine talked about the great results of, I guess for about 70% of our students have created a student plan. We put in Starfish, 2 tools from Starfish, their early alert system and also what's called Starfish Connect. And that system is a system that allows the student, this is really important, web-based, to do their own scheduling for advisor appointments and tutoring appointments and so forth. We then felt that we needed to create a single place, a dashboard for students to go to that would incorporate the LMS data. Our learning management system is Blackboard, our LMS data, our ERP data, and our Starfish data onto a single screen. Student could go there. We're still not exactly sure if it's going to go through the portal or through Blackboard. We're debating that. But we then we use Blackboard Analytics. So Blackboard is our vendor. We're still working through that part of the process. Is our vendor that is helping with the data mashup to create this single view. So when a student goes to this view, they're going to be able to see how many alerts did I have, what's my GPA, how am I doing in my learning management system. Within Blackboard, there's a lot of analytics. We're going to bring all those analytics forward. So everything is really going to be on one screen for the student to really understand what their progress is. So the other thing that I think has been interesting with IPAS is it has really allowed us to explore the sort of what's next. So we're already into sort of what next phases. We have engaged with Civitas Learning. I think some people are starting to hear a little bit more about that. We know that based on the new data that we're collecting through student planning, through the student ed planning, and through our early alert system, that by looking at that data and the LMS data really deeply, that we are going to be able to uncover new information that we can't get at today. Because most of us look at our information we don't really dig deep enough, and we don't look at the behavioral issues with sort of the obvious, okay, that's their GPA and whatnot. We want to look at sort of what's behind perhaps what's driving some of these peaks and valleys when students sort of fall off the edge when they're in the middle of a class, right? They're in the middle of a term and all of a sudden they were doing really well and they're not. There's probably other things happening, and we hope we can get at that. So Catherine talked about the early results. I just want to talk a little bit and sort of end it with challenges and then what's next. So we didn't talk about challenges, but mark my word, there are challenges with these processes. Culture, I think we all talk about and understand, but I think the other thing is just be super observant, because you need people to use these things. And if there's no use, or if you see that you're getting too much resistance, try to step back a little bit. We always use the phrase at our college, sometimes you need to go slower to go fast. So we did step back early on, about a year or so ago, in our work with our early alert system, and it was the right move for us, and it helped really in the long run increase adoption. And as far as next steps, we right now are looking at the front end of this with, we're doing huge process mapping around the student entry, and we're looking at, and we will be looking at a CRM system. And Catherine mentioned the financial piece that we're hoping in the future that we're going to be able to develop a financial plan.
That's great.
And I just want to add a capstone comment to Catherine and Celeste's comments. And we didn't talk about the academic processes and components of programs that need to be in place in order to help students build an educational plan that, for us, I mean, it leads to completion. So we talk to a student, are you you're intending to attend full-time, part-time, and then try to build the academic plan out several semesters in advance, and then use the analytics from the several semesters in advance to help us then build our schedules so that we are offering the right thing at the right time. But there's all types of things that we can do with that. But what has happened for us in order to build that educational plan, we have to make we ask ourselves a lot of questions about the degree pieces of programs. And so what's a co-requisite and why? What's a prerequisite and why? What does this do to our core curriculum, which is somewhat complex and can't be complex necessarily when you begin to move in this direction? You need to begin to craft coherence in the programs. So we are now really doing a lot of work around pathways as a result. So this does fit very nicely and helps us to accelerate that work around pathways. And I think that's an important piece. There's a lot of this that touches the academic work. There's a lot of faculty engagement that's required through academic program review that then does build into being able to have an educational planning tool that's really going to work.
That's great. So thank you, guys. I want to open it up for questions. I have lots of questions, but I get to talk to these guys pretty regularly. And I wonder if anyone in the audience has questions about their approach. Yeah.
Sure. I was curious with the layering of multiple technologies and different vendors. Have you built integration services yourself? Had to find another vendor to do that, or how close have you gotten to sort of that one stop, but on a technology front?
Okay. It's a good question. We did do best of breed, right? It would not have been a first choice. A VP for IT never wants to do best of breed unless they have to because of the integration pieces. But we've been pretty successful with the integration pieces. There are, right, I'm always so honest, right, Laura? The vendors were pretty cooperative. That was part of, I think that was part of the responsibility when we picked them as partners. They knew who our other partners were. So the integrations for the tools that we are using worked for us. The biggest challenge we're having right now is really the mashup of the data, and that's the final piece to our grant work.
I think one of the things that I would add is that you're never going to find a vendor that can do everything you need. And so you are going to need to be very strategic about who you partner with so that you can maximize those partnerships. Because the data integration, the challenges that come with data integration are real. And so, but we can't, as an institution, can't build everything internally. So we need partners.
That's great. And I would say that one of my objectives as a representative of the Gates Foundation is to make the need for customization less. Mm-hmm. And if we can get tighter alignment between what colleges need and what vendors are producing, I'm hoping the future is sort of a plug-and-play world. Mm-hmm. So. Other questions? I saw Laura.
I'd like to address the issue of integration. We had an early alert system that's instructor input driven, and we noticed that our online instructors were not using the system very well. So we asked our early alert solution provider to integrate with Canvas, our learning management system, to pull automatic warnings when the student had not submitted any work or had been given a poor grade, which we defined as below 70. So that we could reach out to those students at an earlier time with the right intervention. So our provider was responsive to our intervention requests.
Very good.
Other questions, comments? So I have one. Everyone mentioned sort of the issue of culture, and I can't remember who mentioned the Student Success Network. I think it was Catherine. And I'm curious, several of the colleges in the project had to create internal committees because of the cross-departmental nature of this. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the functioning of the committees and their relationship to some of the cultural and collaboration issues.
So for the implementation of the tools, we had an overall IPAS committee. And then we had different players from that committee who worked on the different tools implementations. And those were primarily for the student planning, it really was primarily our registrar's office, our advisors, and we had a representative from academic affairs, and then our IT team. There was more academic integration or into the team for the Starfish implementation because our faculty are using that so much more with the entry of early alerts, and because we were replacing a system that really we got a lot of feedback from faculty that they didn't like it, which was why they weren't using it as much as we had hoped that they would. And so we had faculty represented on the implementation. We had one of our deans who's very involved with it. And then we had focus groups with faculty on what types of messaging, what types of alerts should we use. And then what we did is did surveys upon the first implementation, and we gathered a lot of feedback from surveys, from faculty, from advisors, and from students that informed changes that we made between our March rollout and September. Then we used time during faculty development time at the beginning of the semester and during a general faculty meeting, and with our all-college student life committee that is one of our faculty governance committees, and got additional feedback on the Starfish implementation. From that, then, we pulled together a team of faculty who went through and all those recommendations and all that feedback, and just last week presented those recommendations at a general faculty meeting and implemented them this week. And so that iterative process of continuing to make improvements based on that feedback and input, I think, has been really critical to what will be our future success with it.
And really, it was the IPAS working group is part of our overall Achieving the Dream work. So we have a core team still in place after 9 years in Achieving the Dream, and IPAS has informed the core team, and we've tried to make that connection with our work plan for our big student success initiatives. So it's one piece of that larger framework.
Virginia, do you have anything to add?
No, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what's next for us. So we are also in the process of implementing student planning, and in probably the next 4 or 5 months. We have also, and Blackboard is our LMS, and we have also deployed Ellume, which is a predictive analytic application that was also built by Civitas Learning. And we have 2 weeks ago, we began the training on that application. And so the combination of using DegreeMap and Ellume from our standpoint is going to be really, really powerful, because predictive analytics, for the sake of predictive analytics, it sort of falls short. We need to be able to have action applications that sort of respond to what you're seeing and observing in the Ellume application. And so for example, one of the things that we learned recently was that for us, one of the critical point for whether a student is successful for the long term is when they when they apply to the college. And so we learned through using Ellume and sort of adding entering certain values into the application, we learned that for our students, 100 days out from the first day of class is very critical. The students who apply to our institution 100 days out have a pretty significant success rate. Now, it doesn't mean that we sort of now move registration, have a registration deadline 100 days out from the first day of class. That's not going to happen, Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook is here, and he is the provost at Austin Community College. So thank you for being here. So the point that I wanted to make is that that information has been very critical for us, because now what we can do is we can wrap some services around the students who apply within those 100 days from the first day of class. So, I think we're really excited about this, and that's really sort of our next, what's next for us with regards to IPAS, using it in combination with predictive analytics to be able to really inform and take action sort of in real time rather than after when students have left.
Celeste, did you do that? No? Other questions? Well, let's thank our panel. You guys did a great job.